Hello and welcome back to the Loyal Sons Show. That's at the Loyal Sons, whatever you get your social media. Follow us here and follow us there for Pitt sports content you will not want to miss. If you love being undefeated and hate Charlie Partridge's absence, this is the place for you. The Loyal Sons Show, a safe, sunshiny place for your Pitt athletics fix. Gentlemen, I want to start things off by telling you a few things that are factually correct. Pitt is 5-0 for the first time since 1991. Pitt just won a game in Chapel Hill for the first time in program history. Eli Holstein is the first Pitt quarterback to start his career 5-0 since some gentleman by the name of Dan Marino.
I've heard of him.
And you've heard of him?
Mm-hmm.
And we are an hour and a half away from the AP poll dropping, and we are on tiny little number watch. So my question to you is, how are we feeling today?
Hard to complain. Truly is hard to complain. Like you said, Pitt's 5-0 for the first time in any of our lifetimes. We have a freshman quarterback stud who is quickly cementing himself as one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. We have an offense filled with playmakers. And, I mean, what else can you say? You're 5-0. We'll find something to bitch about. Don't worry, we always do. But right now, it's just getting a little harder to do so.
It just feels so great because we've been saying it all offseason. Just relax. Pitt's going to be undefeated, and Eli Holstein will be one of the best freshman quarterbacks in the country. Just calm down. Forget last year. Everything will be fine. We've been saying it all offseason, and it's
the transfers
nice
from Western Carolina are really gonna make a huge impact and completely change the dynamic of our offense.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that we said would happen, just coming true week by week.
I remember telling you guys, I think this is the first time Pitt will go 5-0 in our lifetimes.
I remember all of this.
Mm-hmm.
It was right after Dylan said that Des Reed is going to average 200 yards all-purpose per game, and it was right before I said that Rodney Hammond was going to get suspended for the entire season and then be heroically reinstated 2 days before UNC. As always, the Loyal Sons are just on top of everything.
But we can't take too much credit because I think everyone saw this coming. Right?
Could have set your watch to it.
Mm-hmm. And now we're here.
What was the over-under on most sports books for Pitt wins this season? Was it sitting around 5.5?
I think it's 5.5 or 6.
5.5.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, we were all pretty skeptical of if we would bet the over there. I think if I'm remembering correctly, I predicted 6-6 for this season, barring an absolute catastrophe, and we're not going to bring those vibes into the universe today, but they should meet that 6-win mark fairly soon here. Fellas, Pitt has something cooking right now. We've talked about the schedule. We've talked about what could potentially happen in the future. But not to get too ahead of ourselves. Do we just want to kick it off with going through yesterday's game, things that stuck out, the legend of Eli Holstein?
I think we gotta, and the further away we get from the game, the more it feels like a very classic Pitt win of I was stressed out and miserable the entire time. I made a million notes about how bad this team sucks and where all their deficiencies are. And the further away we get from the game, and the more I rewatch the condenser, the more I read the box score, I'm like, oh wait, no, that was just like a pretty top to bottom solid performance. And we controlled that entire game.
It's a 10-point win on the road in a place we haven't won ever. So in hindsight, yeah. But I don't know how long it was until we started to feel good. certainly wasn't after the first drive.
Well, yeah, those first few possessions, it just felt like, and I think this is part of the being further removed, feeling better about the game. It felt like in that first 10 minutes, I mean, we had a Dan Carter dropped walk-in touchdown. Should have been an easy score. We leave that possession with 3 points. We muff a punt. Few plays later, we fumble, jet sweep. Few plays later, we throw a pick six, or maybe it's a different possession. My
I thought it was the first
chronology.
possession as well. For some reason, whenever I said that, it was our second.
Okay,
We got a
so
field goal the first drive. That's whenever Dan Carter short-armed the walk-in touchdown. So we settled for a short field goal. We got down there. But yeah, we went down 7-3, and we were like, wow, we could just be up 14-0 maybe if we're playing like slightly better, or at the very worst, 10-0.
it just felt like they came into the game very unprepared, undisciplined, and it was like, oh, we're gonna lay an egg here today, and all of our momentum's gonna be gone. And then after that, things kind of got cleaned up. Ton of penalties, very frustrating. But I must say, like, even in the moment, I just felt like we were so much better than North Carolina was. Like,
Yes.
even on the 19 play, 81-yard drive that resulted in 0 points, which I can't imagine has happened many times in the history of football. Even after that drive, we get the ball back and score quick. And I'm like, okay, they're like scratching and clawing for every first down. And we're just
Yes.
getting the ball to Desmond Reed, and he's running by all their players.
They were going for every fourth down. They were playing every third down to try to create a fourth and short. Like, it's very clear, I guess, in hindsight now, because again, in the moment, it feels like they're just jamming the ball down your throat. But in hindsight, they had to throw the kitchen sink at us every new set of downs.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about our worries mainly being the defensive line. But if you look at it in hindsight, like we're doing now, we're away from the game. Defense allowed 17 points. They didn't allow many big plays. I don't know what the total number of big plays was, but it didn't feel like that many. And they played bend but don't break defense. Like, if you're going to go for that many fourth downs, like you said, eventually we're going to stop. Eventually Brandon George is going to get his head in the hole and stand up Hampton, and we're going to get off the field. And that's what happened. We were worried, but this team just figured it out.
Yeah,
that long drive was
sorry. I was just gonna say, I mean, statistically, like looking at the team stats, I mean, Pitt had 520 yards of offense, so they outgained UNC by 104 yards. UNC finished with 416 yards. We turned the ball over once, obviously the pick six, 23 first downs each. The time of possession, although it didn't feel like it, I think Pitt did a really good job of chewing clock in the second half, was almost even. 30-41 for UNC, 29-19 for Pitt, which kind of surprised me looking back at it. But
yeah, especially considering it's very clear UNC was just trying to sit on the ball. 3 yards in a cloud of dust, grind us out.
Right. So yeah, I think, quite frankly, a lot of the numbers make the game feel a little closer than it was, or feel like these teams are maybe a little closer. But once again, that's kind of what you get when you make a lot of mistakes early. But thought they made up for it. Eli Holstein just playing. I don't know if I want to call it the best game of his career, because the pick six does hurt a good bit. But I mean, from a sheer numbers perspective, 381 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, another 76 and a score on the ground, sets a freshman record for single game passing yards. He is moving into a spot, and I've already felt really good about him, but every time he drops back, I just assume we're getting a first down.
You know, what's crazy is I would even go as far to contradict you, Dylan. I thought at points this felt like a game this was the most shaky I thought he looked since the first half in Cincinnati, because with that pick six, and then it just felt like there were some, and I see the face you're making, Squid, but hear me out. There were a couple points where he was throwing in the intermediate. Obviously, long balls were hitting, everything short to Desmond Reed that he could grab onto and take off. He had a couple misses early on in the intermediate that had me scratching my head and a little bit worried, and things never fully tanked. But he came right back in that last drive and was hitting all the throws that I felt he was struggling with a little bit in the beginning of the game. So, I mean, those numbers speak for themselves, and he's going to keep making freshman mistakes here and there. There was a third down where we only needed a field goal, and I'm trying to place when it was, where he just threw up.
The last play from the offense, well, before the kneel downs.
Yes, where he just you're right. That was in the fourth quarter where he just threw up a prayer to the 1 yard line into
very ill-advised.
Like as ill-advised given the situation as possible. So I guess
was
what
say,
I'm
that was
at,
either going to be the best play I've ever seen or the worst play I've ever seen. And it was like a yard away from going either way. But thankfully it ended up just harmlessly falling to the turf.
Yes. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is I think this game more than the WVU game and the Youngstown State game, we saw some like real freshman shit.
I don't know about that.
But hey, just to finish the thought, he 383 touchdowns, like he put it all together and he cooked when it mattered.
We got points almost every drive. We punted
at least
3 times. And like the pick six happened. We got points every drive but once in the second half. And we were moving the ball. I'm going to shout out Cade Bell here because he was doing the thing where someone's open, whether it's Desmond Reed getting a good matchup or we get Sincere Lee or Montfield or Poppy Williams coming across the field. It didn't matter. Someone was going to be open, and that's kind of how we felt. And it's how we felt it should be because this UNC defense isn't very good. So I thought the offense, I didn't doubt. I thought they were moving the ball at will. I guess my one thing with Holstein is he wasn't taking off and running as much in the first half as I would have liked. There were a few times where I was like, could have just got like 6 right there if you tucked it and ran, but I trusted the process, and lo and behold, we got over 30 points again. It's what we do.
And Holstein once again had over 303 touchdowns, which, I mean, water's wet, the sky is blue.
Yeah, some of the other games, I mean, obviously Cincinnati and even a stretch in West Virginia, we had like quarters where we did nothing. This game, we had a bad drive where we went 3 and out or 5 plays, -4 yards, and you punt. Next drive, bounce back with a 11-play, 75-yard touchdown or 75-yard touchdown drive. Like they were marching. And none better than the I guess it was our last drive. 14 plays, 73 yards, 7 minutes, kick a field goal to go up 2 scores. That's probably what Narduzzi was shitting his pants about all offseason. Hear about this tempo.
Yes, Squid.
Can we do both? And Cade Bell knows what he's doing. He put together a methodical drive, killed half of the quarter, and at that point, UNC was basically mathematically out of it.
Well, unless they had a quarterback named Eli Holstein, then they still would have been very much in it. But no, Squid, you hit on something that had been giving me anxiety, even as we started torching teams and we realized the offense was legit. Can they milk the clock? Can they call ball game and go on a 7-minute drive? Do they have that? Can they shift into a lower gear and take 7 minutes off the clock? Because my biggest fear was that, we could come out of the gate hot, kick a team's, teeth down their throat, and then, potentially make it a close game at the end if we have a couple 3-and-outs that, 3 3-and-outs that combine for 4 minutes of gameplay it makes us susceptible for someone to come back on us. Can they sit on the ball, milk the clock? And it would appear that we do have that gear, which is a huge relief going down the stretch.
It feels like, unlike previous years, Pitt knows what works, and they're just doing it. So when you have a quarterback like Eli Holstein, he's going through his reads, and he can run. So you got that in the back pocket. You got a scrambling quarterback who can pick up a third down and medium just with his legs. They used Desmond Reed so much in the pass game. It was awesome. They're like, oh, you're going to keep guarding this guy with linebackers? Yeah, we'll throw it to him in the flat every time, and he'll make him miss. We'll beat him to the edge, whatever. And when you just mix in all these other receivers and route concepts, and I'd love to see a breakdown of what we're doing on offense, but all I know is we're rolling right now, and we're hard to stop. Like, I don't care if UNC's not a very good defense. What I saw yesterday made me feel really, really good.
11 catches for 155 and a touchdown for Desmond Reed. I mean, those are elite receiver numbers, and you're getting that from your 5'6" tailback. He also had 18 carries, only for 55 yards. I'll say it, I'm a little concerned. I hate to continue to harp on, but like 29 touches for a guy who's probably all of $170. Once again, get him the ball as much as we can, get him in space. He's absolute game changer. But I mean, how many games have we seen this year where he's had to be helped off the field, go get checked out in the locker room? He ended up finishing this game anyway, but it's been a recurring theme. And once again, I want him to get the ball as much as possible, but also kind of want him to be on a pitch count. And hopefully, now that a certain someone has been reinstated, that someone being Rodney Hammond, who we haven't even been able to talk about since that news dropped. And there's a ton of layers here with him being back, but
yeah, what the hell?
Hopefully getting Rodney reacclimated into things can take a little bit of that, that load off of Desmond Reed's shoulders. And once again, I don't think this should end up being a 50-50 split. I think Desmond Reed is very clearly probably, I mean, other than Eli Holstein and maybe 1A and 1B, the most important cog in this offense. But Rodney's shown stuff in the past where he can be that spell back. He can come in and eat up some carries and take some of that load off of Desmond Reed's shoulders.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see the day where we're calling for a guy who had 200 total yards on offense to be on the field less, but I think everyone yesterday during the second time Reed got hurt thought Hammond could have had a few more carries mixed in there, huh? You don't want to become predictable and be like, Hammond's out there where they're just going to run it up the middle, but we trust Rodney to do enough. We're not lining him out wide and throwing it to him 10 times, but he can still do some things.
I'm willing to write off a lot of the things we just discussed as an aberration. Des Reed getting that many carries, Rodney Hammond not being a big impact on the game, our struggles running the ball. I think we can start there. North Carolina took away our run game, except the occasions where Holstein saw that there was nothing there, tucked the ball and took off. So Cade Bell, to his credit, kept doing the thing that was working, which was the short little passes to Desmond Reed, mixed in a Texas route or two to get some big chunk plays, but really just run the passing game through him. I'm cool with it. But next week Rodney Hammond is going to be in better game shape. He looked a little rusty out there, and we might not have to rely on 11 short passes to Desmond Reed if he's running the ball a little bit more effectively, if Rodney Hammond's running the ball a little bit more effectively. So I'm willing to chalk this up as a one-off, but I am concerned about Desmond Reed going down in every fourth quarter.
I'm not. Desmond Reed's that fast. He's that good of a route runner. Let's do this every week.
I like to sometimes just highlight certain moments of a game when we're discussing these guys. Like everyone saw the Desmond Reed 72-yard route that I couldn't believe he actually got tracked down on. I thought there was no chance in hell that he wasn't
Was
going to
blown
score.
away.
But
He did the
no,
gesture we had turn around and see where the guy's at.
yeah, that was maybe think he could have finished that one out, but no harm, no foul. I think my favorite play from Desmond Reed yesterday was another little crossing route he caught, went up the sideline, and then eyed up the linebacker who had just tried to target Eli Holstein, the targeting that got reversed. And instead of running around him or running out of bounds, Desmond Reed just lowers his head and goes directly into the linebacker's chest and knocks him out of bounds. Those are the plays that I feel like he was probably also making in the spring and in camp that made Pat Narduzzi fall in love with Desmond Reed. But to see your 5'6", 170-pound tailback absolutely go after a linebacker who just tried to cheap shot your quarterback, those type of plays stick out.
I mean, he doesn't run the ball like he's 5'6", 170. That combination of strength and balance he has makes him very. I mean, we compared him a lot in the offseason to Vinny Davis, who we're very clear on our position on Vinny Davis. Good player, used as poorly as possible, but he was that size, and if you got a hand on him, he was going down. Whereas Desmond Reed, you can have someone 3 times his size coming full speed into his chest, and there's a good chance he maintains balance, although flying back 6 yards, stays on his feet and makes a move and cuts upfield. It's really remarkable.
Yeah, he's a special player. When Cade Bell was recruiting him, people in the South Florida area told him, like, yeah, he's the best running back from here since Dalvin Cook. He just happens to be 5'6". So that's Pitt got a diamond in the rough, and thank God for Cade Bell, because otherwise Desmond Reed would be doing this at Coastal Carolina this year instead of the University of Pittsburgh. Couple other shout outs on offense I just want to throw out there. I mean, Konate Mumpfield just continuing to be the guy that we all figured he could have been the last couple of years. Huge plays, 3 catches for 111 yesterday, 37 yards a catch. Just a big play guy. Seems like Holstein really trusts him to just throw it up to him.
Tough catches too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
easy.
Everyone has always talked about Mumpfield as a route runner, and that remains true, but he's quickly becoming fuck it, Mumpfield's down there somewhere.
Yeah.
Like territory, and he can make insane athletic plays on contested balls, and he did that multiple times yesterday.
All of our receivers, for that matter.
Yeah.
Sincere Lee is making some tough catches too. Like this receiver group.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was just wanted to shout out the receivers in general. Sincerely had the touchdown and he had a big catch on that last drive to go down and get the Sauls field goal. He coming back to the ball, lays out for it to get a big first down. Poppy Williams, obviously another touchdown. Death taxes, Poppy always going to be open. Just a really good receiving core.
Pop quiz for you guys, and you might have seen my text in the GM the other day about this. Going into North Carolina, how many drops do you think Pitt receivers accounted for this season?
I saw it.
I also saw your text.
Okay, so you both know that it was 2. 2 drops on the season. Even Jordan Addison, playing in one of the best seasons we've ever seen from a receiver, was dropping 2 balls a game himself. Like, this is ridiculous, especially watching, players in the same uniform for the last however many years. And even when we had good receivers, drops were a significant issue. How long did drops hold back the Kenny Pickett train?
Like 3 years.
Like 3 years. So
we lost games because of drops.
Yeah. We don't have to go down that dark alleyway, but
we will not.
We will not. But these guys are and we're all going to knock on wood real quick, but these guys are all getting wildly open and catching everything that's thrown to them. What the hell is going on?
It's funny to think about. I was thinking about this in like NCAA 25 video game perspectives. Like, I don't know how high of a rating these individual receivers we have would get, but I know they're playing like extremely good college football players. So whether it's the new receiver coach, I don't know if it's his coaching, these play calls, just their talent, whatever it is, a combination of all those things is just perfect.
So we've praised the offense a good bit here. We know how consistent they've been this year. There's some praises I want to heap on the defense. And once again, we said they only allowed 17 points yesterday. I also feel like that number could have been a bit higher if UNC had a more serviceable quarterback. Criswell missed some very open receivers yesterday. Amari and Hampton, I mean, he's going to do that to a lot of teams, but really had trouble stopping him for a good portion of that game. So if there's any concerns we want to point out right now, we've referenced it once or twice already. What's up with this D-line? Because there were some plays, especially in the first half yesterday. If we were only sending 4, Criswell basically could have sat back there, did his taxes, maybe poured himself a cup of coffee, and then was able to hit a receiver 10 yards down the field with really no one within 5 yards of him. So if there's anywhere we want to point to for cause for concern for a 5-0 team, I think that's the first place we can look.
Definitely. We had a great crew at Archie's. Shout out to Archie's watching the game. And it seemed like every play on defense, someone was yelling, like, will someone get home? Because they weren't. And he said Criswell isn't the best passer. Even if we had pressures on him, I think that would disrupt their timing, his accuracy. He probably would have missed some of those guys. But he had so much time to go through every one of his reads. And eventually, even when we were blitzing, they'd pick it up. And he'd get through 1 or 2 reads, and there'd be a guy open because we had to send pressure because we couldn't get home with 4 dudes. So I don't know what the answer is, but I'm not asking for anyone to go out there and get 2 sacks a game. I'm just saying get in the quarterback's grill a little bit. Let's start there.
It is pretty demoralizing how bad we are at getting pressure this year. 12 sacks in 5 games is bad. That's horrendous by Pitt standards and just not good by any other measure. We are fully unable to make the quarterback sweat without bringing linebackers, who thankfully are linebackers, pretty good blitzers. Kyle Lewis called ball game. I think we all saw that happening, or at least saw that coming. And it's weird because Matlack is getting pressure, but he's kind of doing the who was it in previous years who would get quote unquote pressure on every play, but just kind of run 4 yards past the quarterback? Was that Dayon's signature move?
I was kind of thinking of a Dayon comparison because it was a lot
maybe
of
Haba.
It's like, oh, I forgot about him. Like as soon as you forget about him or start complaining about him not doing anything, he'll come out of the woodwork and make a play. But then it'll be several quarters of being stonewalled before the next moment happens. It's not a whole lot of consistency from anybody.
I will say,
guys, we're seeing a lot of guys on that D line get out there, and nobody's really standing out. I know Pat Narduzzi said Nick James is their best interior defensive lineman, and I'll take his word for that because I couldn't tell you. And he was out yesterday, so I don't know if plugging Nick James in at D tackle helps whatsoever, but I feel like it doesn't that much.
I will say, watching Sean Fitzsimmons yesterday in his first real game action as a Panther, you could very easily see like, okay, I get why they've been hyping him. I can see that this guy is probably the best defensive tackle on the roster. Let's just keep him healthy and get him a little bit more in game time. I think he could be, if anything is going to turn around our woes on the defensive line, it's going to be Sean Fitzsimmons. He's just got to get healthy and got to see more time on the field. But yeah, we're rotating a million guys and none of them are sticking out. So I think we're starting to get to the point where we need to decide who is good, if any of them, and maybe rotate a little bit less than Deuce and Bates would typically like to, because we're just throwing guys out there who are warm bodies in the
I
name
don't hate
of
that. Just to have,
rotating.
if nobody's standing out, you might as well have fresh legs as opposed to tiring out your best guys. But I think Sincere Edwards is a guy we could maybe count on.
Well,
I
was just
notice
gonna
him more
say,
than some of the other guys.
yeah, I felt like yesterday, and this might be, maybe there will be a sort of a youth movement on that D line, but I feel like more and more towards the end of the game, it's like, all right, Jimmy Scott, all right, Chief Borders, you guys aren't making enough plays for us. So let's give Sincere Edwards a chance to make a play. And I feel like in his limited action this year, you always kind of seem to notice him. And we knew that coming in. He was the biggest get in this most recent recruiting class, most likely. Was a big recruiting battle to hold on to him. But I think you're just going to see more of him, especially as he learns the college game a little more, learns the scheme. Francis Brew yesterday, I mean, absolutely just like embarrassed a interior lineman for North Carolina and got a pressure on Criswell. So he's another guy who I think maybe we'll see more of. Isaiah Neal even made a couple plays yesterday. Not dominant by any means, but seeing some of these younger guys stand out. Maybe it is just a case of, okay, we gave the older guys a chance, the guys who a little more familiar with the defense, familiar with playing college football. But if you're not going to make the plays, we're going to let these young, raw, talented guys go out there and see if they can make some splash plays.
It seems like we have a couple guys that are maybe a year away from making a jump to being an impact player. But in the short term, are there answers? Is it just keep sending Kyle Lewis on a blitz every other play and try to do these exotic disguised blitzes? We got to do something.
Hey, and if that's what it takes, I know you'll get burned on those occasionally, but I really liked how it seemed like after halftime, the coaching staff got together and was like, we're not going to let him sit back there all day. Like, let's get in his face. Let's hit him a few times. If we have to send 2-3 linebackers, let's do it. And Pitt did start to beat him up in the second half. And I think that might have been part of the reason why some of his passes were so inaccurate. Was there were a few times he was getting up, grabbing his ribs, holding that flak jacket. And Brandon George is just kind of a menace in the middle. I feel like he just lives to hit people. So yesterday, yeah, I do think that might just end up being the answer. We might not be able to, like teams of Pitt pass, just send 4 guys and get pressure. It might just be, we're going to dial up all kinds of exotic blitzes, and sure, sometimes we might get burnt with these, but with such an athletic linebacking core, you might just have to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, and honestly, doing that paid off again, similar to the Cincinnati game. On 4th down, we sent 7 dudes, and they got to the quarterback real quick, and he missed a throw. And we did that again on a 4th down. We had one of those formations where we had like all of our linebackers up in the line. You expect like 1 or 2 to drop back. No one dropped back. They all blitzed, forced a quick pass. It was inaccurate. So I'm going to give Randy Bates and Pat Narduzzi a little bit more leeway here to figure it out and come up with some solutions. But the schedule only gets harder, I guess. We got some good offenses over the next few weeks, so not a whole lot of time to figure it out, and there aren't going to be any growth spurts overnight.
Anything we need?
No, there aren't.
Anything to put a bow on the UNC game? I think we can all agree, although we may have been nervous as hell in the moment, a good win, 10-point win on the road against a conference opponent.
There are two things I wanted to touch on from that game. One good and one bad. I'll let you guys pick which you want first.
Bad.
Close your eyes. It's third and goal from like the 15. Pitt is on defense. Other team comes out. I think you know where this is going. Dews calls a timeout right before they snap the ball. Burns a timeout. They come back out. The offense scores anyway. If I were to describe that sequence to you, how many times do you think you've seen it in the last 10 years? Narduzzi burning an unnecessary timeout on a third down in the red zone and then still getting burnt.
Too often.
What is the deal with that?
One of my best talents is knowing when Narduzzi is going to burn his signature third and long on defense timeout. Like the offense will break the huddle and line up. I'm like, oh yeah, timeout coming here. And Dews.
It's a very fun, very specific superpower to have.
It's not fun.
His timeout usage is questionable at best, and maybe it doesn't feel as bad because there's another coach in the city of Pittsburgh who is somehow worse at using his timeouts. But that exact sequence that I just described happened to a T against North Carolina, and it was just the least surprising thing ever. As soon as that timeout came in, you knew that tight end was somehow going to get wide open over top for just the easiest little dink and dunk touchdown you've ever seen.
I get it in theory. If it worked almost all the time, I wouldn't complain, but I'd have to do some really long and unnecessary research to find out the success rate of the Narduzzi third and long defensive timeout to see how effective it is. I'm not going to do it. No one should put themselves through that, but I am curious to know what the numbers are on how much that actually works.
Let's ask Peak for the login to his PFF account and then see if we can find it in there. Yeah, so that is just a tiny thing that I think is going to continue to happen and infuriate us for years to come. But as for the promised good news, the O-line kept a clean sheet yesterday. Holstein was not sacked. Holstein was getting sacked at one of the highest rates in the country. Well, not rate, but in terms of sacks per game, one of the highest in the country. And I think the offensive line figured out that the secret to protecting Holstein in the passing game is to hold every play.
Yeah. Let them call you for it here and there, but do not let our young prodigy quarterback get hurt. I also do remember I think it was the first quarter still, and I think it was Rucker came through essentially untouched on a third down, and Holstein got rid of it, but got absolutely lit up. So I like to think they came to the sideline and Dews just absolutely ripped into them and was like, if that ever happens again, just grab someone's jersey. Do not let them tee off on Eli like that, because the guy legitimately came through untouched. Clearly some sort of miscommunication and got him lit up. But yeah, hey, if we have to live with a couple holds to keep Eli Holstein's jersey clean, I'll take it.
And we're just fortunate that I think the holds that were called were like pretty strategic, like worked out for us. You know, think of the one drive where we got the ball, I think on the 15, and then there was a penalty on the punt. There was like a false start and then 2 consecutive holds. And so we're at like the 5-yard line. Like, we just got what would have been about 30, 40 yards worth of penalties and only backed us up 10 yards. So, hey, as long as it's not in the end zone, that's pretty smart. As long as the hold doesn't take place in the end zone, we're good. But yeah, just thought that the O-line should get their propers for keeping our dear sweet boy upright.
I'll say one more good thing. Ben Sauls.
Yeah,
Just good. Plain and simple. All there is to it.
gonna be kicking on Sundays next year. He should be on some award watch lists. I don't know if he's not, but he should be if he isn't.
The Lou Groza. Let's start that campaign. Great. Pitt's 5-0. We feel good. We got the Cow Bears coming to town next week, but we'll talk a little more about that later in the week. But other than that, outside of Pitt getting a big win at noon, there was a whole lot of other stuff going on around college football yesterday. So if we just want to kind of rapid fire talk about what happened, I mean, first and foremost, number one, Alabama goes down to Vanderbilt.
Literal Vanderbilt.
The Vanderbilt Commodores, who had lost 23 straight to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Diego Pavia takes down Pavia takes down the Crimson Tide, gives an absolutely electric post-game interview. The students took the goalposts down Broadway and threw them in the river.
I love college football so much.
I was just going to say, every time we say college football is being ruined, no, it's just changing, but it's still college football.
Has anyone ever beaten Georgia and then lost to Vanderbilt in the next week? Ever?
I'd have to get our stats department on that, which is you, but I'm going to have to think no.
Call Uncle Dick.
Uncle Dick, yeah.
That's just what makes it even better. Bama beating Vandy beating Bama would be insane on its own, but after what we saw last week, I think everyone was ready to give Milroe the Heisman and pencil in Bama as in the playoff. Nope. Here come the Vanderbilt Commodores.
Not to mention, Tennessee, number 4, also considered a very serious contender for the championship, lost to Arkansas and a very lame duck, Sam Pittman. So I think I'm willing to declare that inexplicable college football upsets are back, because there's been a couple years lately, and it's really fed into this conversation of college football's ruined. It's just 4 good schools with all the money and you know, all the 5 stars, and it's just not fun. There's no parity anymore. There was, you know, to be honest, a multi-year period where it felt like top-ranked teams, real contenders, were no longer losing stupid games. It felt like when we were growing up, you could always bank on, like, yeah, there's just going to be a week where 3, 4, and 5 all lose to, like, basement dwellers in their conference, and it stopped happening. And if you had a loss in the regular season but were a playoff team, it was probably to a formidable or, you know, ranked conference opponent, or a early season, you know, big Showtime helmet matchup between 2 top 10 teams. No, stupid upsets are back. 5 of the top 11 lost this weekend, and that doesn't include a Miami team that was very much gifted a last-second win against unranked Cal.
Yeah, I mean, just going through the list here, Michigan lost to Washington, although I don't know how much of an upset. Michigan is not the 10th best team in the country. I mean, they can't throw the ball for 100 yards.
They're on their third quarterback. We weren't even on our third quarterback last year.
They were not favored to win that game, which is crazy.
Yeah, they were dogs in that one. Minnesota takes down 11 USC. Once again, don't think USC is the 11th best team in the country. Squid, what's Lincoln Riley's record in the last 12 games?
He's lost 7 times in his last 12 games, believe it or not.
Right. So that is
He
clearly
had a guy named Caleb Williams last year, so you can't hold it against him. He didn't have a whole lot to work with.
Yeah, but go scream at another reporter, buddy.
yeah. Both those
It's
teams will probably
everybody's
be
fault
ranked.
but yours.
Both those teams will probably be ranked ahead of Pitt when we see the AP poll release in about an hour. But hey, not worried about that. Who else
But
went down?
I do want to point out
Oh,
that
go for
that
it.
still counts as an inexplicable upset because Minnesota is terrible.
True.
That is an atrocious football team.
I mean, Minnesota, they lost UNC, who was using Connor Harrell to finish that game against them. College football, great weekend for college football. Missouri also lost 41-10. So I think we're moving into the part of the season where we can confidently say that like no one is very good this year. And this is going to be, I think, a very wacky second half of the season.
I'll tell you one team that's very good. It's the Pitt Panthers. That's all I care about.
Do you remember that insane 2007 year where like every week the number 2 team in the country lost?
Yes.
That is quietly happening right now with the number 10 team. It's week 6 of college football. The number 10 ranked team in the country is 1-5. The week that they are number 10.
You hear that, AP
Including
voters?
Florida State losing twice as number 10.
You hear that, AP voters? Rank Pitt. Give us a little number, but don't give us number 10.
Yeah, not 10. Okay. Well, anything else before I send us out of here? This beautiful Sunday
Final
afternoon.
thing. Cal Twitter, great for the sport, very funny. But Pitt Twitter, get your AI generators fired up. We are not holding back. I don't want an alliance. I don't want to hold hands with them on Twitter going into this week.
No.
Let's kill the Bears on the field and on our Twitter timelines.
Yeah, agreed, Squid. I know there's a ton of funny memes. Haha, they're nerds. They have good, cool signs at college game day. But we aren't friends. This is game week. We've got an undefeated Pitt Panthers who need us. They need us to be huge pricks to Cal fans. That's how that works.
Makes them play better.
Yes, exactly. No buddy this week. I've seen a lot of that already. It's game week. That all needs to go out the window today. Glad we figured that out. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna get going here, fellas. Got a nice Sunday planned ahead of me. I mean, the sun is shining in Pittsburgh. It's a beautiful day. Beautiful October day. The Pitt Panthers are undefeated in the month of October. The Pitt Football Panthers are undefeated in the month of October. It's a great time to be a Pitt sports fan. I think the women's volleyball team is cleaning up Syracuse right now as well. So, fellas, enjoy your Sundays. Kick back, relax, have a stress-free Sunday, and then stress about the upcoming football game the rest of the week until Saturday. Talk to you guys later this week. Thanks for listening in. And as always, hail loyal sons of Pittsburgh.